Welcome to What's in the Box, episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna.
I'm Eric.
And we're going to start off this episode with our Not Stephen King book of the week, which is Sausages, The Making of Dog Soldiers, written by Janine Pipe. I don't know where I came across this book. I don't know if you've all noticed, but that's kind of a theme with some of the books that I've read. I just randomly come across these books. I really have no idea where I came across this book. It could have been a recommendation on Amazon when I was ordering another book. It could have been mentioned in one of my, in the Books of Horror group. I'm not sure. But it sounded really interesting. I've never read a making of book of a movie before. And it was really, I enjoyed it. It starts off, it walks you through the whole process of this movie. It starts with when the script was written. I guess it took like 8 years for this movie to actually be put into production. Neil Marshall wrote and directed the movie. And then it went into pre-production, casting. There was a written walkthrough of the entire movie, so it was almost like you were reading the actual script of the movie, kind of, and broke it down. There are some behind-the-scenes pictures. I'll just pull one up here.
I know it's got like a storyboard too.
Yeah, it's got storyboards in it. Like here's, there's a storyboard image right there, and then there's like this behind-the-scenes picture. So it's pretty cool. I like this one. This is the scene with the Jeep. I don't know if you can see it really well, where they're reaching through. And that's one of the special effects guys up there on the top of that Jeep. But I learned some really, really interesting things about this book. It was, or the movie. It was backed financially by a spinach tycoon. I didn't know spinach tycoons were a thing. I forget what the guy's name is. I'll have to find my my flag here. I went through and tabbed. Christina Pfeiffer would be proud of me. What the heck was the guy's name? David Allen, I think. Where is that flag?
And that's the cool thing about independent movies and low budget horror movies in particular, is that almost always the guy that's the money guy is interesting. I think we've already discussed this in a couple different instances where, just a couple episodes ago, we were talking about the guy who was back in one of the movies we watched, The Howling. The guy that backed The Howling owned a bunch of theaters and decided he thought he could do it too. They decided to throw some money behind a cool werewolf film.
David Allen is the name of the guy. Spinach tycoon. I just find that hilarious.
And I am still in the middle of reading the book, but like you said, it's filled with a lot of information. I did watch one of the making ofs that came with the Blu-ray, the director's cut or whatever, the collector's edition. And like you said, he wrote the script like in 95, and this movie doesn't come out until what, 92 maybe? I think they filmed it in 2001. They filmed it in 2001. It comes out 2002, something like that. But he wrote it in the 90s. And it's a great movie. I mean, this is one of my favorite directors. And so it's cool to see his first film be this, badass.
Some of the things that I, notated in the book, we'll discuss as we're going through talking about the movie, because it's really pertinent to the points. But one thing I learned reading this book is that the cast and crew that were on site, filming the movie, became really close. They took, especially the cast, they took being a platoon of, they call them squaddies, because of course this takes place over in Scotland. They took being a platoon of squaddies very seriously, and they like bonded just like military men would if they were, on a mission, or stationed overseas, or in battle. So
I
they
feel
became,
like I was gonna say I feel like that happens in every military movie that does this kind of, they didn't have a ton of training. They only had a couple days, but
yep,
once you
yep,
get thrown into this kind of an environment,
hmm
I think it happens every time. I mean, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, a lot of those military movies have that. I think it really helped this movie because it's
yeah,
not a werewolf movie. It's more of a military
yeah,
action movie that happens to have werewolves in it.
yeah. Um, I also learned that there were a lot of like Easter eggs, as far as, not a lot of Easter eggs, but one of the squaddies named Bruce Campbell. That was Neil Marshall's ode to the Evil
Evil
Dead
Dead.
movie.
Yeah, they said
Yep,
that that's what they were trying to do. They're trying to make their Evil Dead a low budget horror movie that would stand the test of time.
yep,
So yeah, that's really cool that yeah, there's a lot of little I think nods and winks without being too, overt when they do it.
yeah. And going back to the spinach tycoon, um, David Allen, I guess he went on set, and he kept leaving cans of Popeye spinach on the set because, of course, if you've seen the movie, it takes place in a house for the most part. And Neil was like, "Who eats canned spinach in Scotland?" So he would go and turn the cans around so you couldn't see what they were a can of. Um, and I looked as I was watching it because I rewatched it today to have it fresh in my mind. I was watching to see if I could notice any cans facing backwards in the set, but I couldn't. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't come across any cans either. I know we had
yeah,
talked about it before. I
yeah,
was hoping they would kind of pop out so we could catch some scenes and go with it. But
yeah, yeah. But this is
hey,
great. Yeah.
he should do what
The
he needs to. He put the money up. He wants them to wear canned spinach, instead
Yep,
of walking the
exactly.
back.
Um, but the author, Janine Pipe, of this, who wrote this book, there was a lot of humor in it. It sounded like there was a section where it was all interviews with the cast and some of the crew, even the special effects crew that weren't on site, um, or on set. Um, so it was great to read those interviews. One cast member, the woman who played Megan, she declined to be interviewed, because she actually, and I don't think Janine wrote it in here, and if she did, I can't remember. But the actress who played Megan completely stepped away from the Hollywood scene, I'll say. So she didn't really want anything to do with it.
Well,
Um,
that's really weird because she's in the documentary.
is she really?
Yeah, the whole time.
Huh.
She's one of the three actors that actually participated in it. She
Oh
talks
wow.
about the whole thing. She
Yeah.
still has the teeth,
Oh geez.
and
Wow.
she gives them. She says her kids try and wear them, but they haven't grown into them. So they're
Uh-huh.
these insane canine werewolf teeth that
Oh, that's
because
funny.
she was in the middle of the transformation. So there'll
Yeah.
be some things I guess that cross over with this thing. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
she that was her first movie.
Yep, yep, that was her first movie. This book was written in 2022. So depending on when that documentary was filmed, maybe in the interim between then and this book
Yeah.
being written, um, she, decided she didn't want anything to do with it. And some people may be wondering why, the name of the book, and I'm showing it, but it's on the screen as well, is Sausages. And that's because they used sausages for, Wells' intestines. There's the scene
Yeah.
where Wells gets disemboweled, and they used sausages. And there's a
And
funny,
I get it, but it's the worst.
yeah,
It's the worst.
yeah. I guess there was an issue with the sausages rotting. So they ended up using some other material to finish out the filming of those scenes. So yeah,
You
that was
give low budget horror a break, for cutting corners and stuff, but they look terrible.
Yeah, yeah,
in the movie. They really do, but it's in a fun way. It's one of those things where it's I don't know. I thought it was fun to see it, but I thought, man, there's no way he would do that
yeah,
nowadays,
yeah. And then, I learned that one of the actors, let me find my page here because he actually said that I think it was Kevin McKidd, um,
Cooper.
Cooper. Was it Cooper or was it another one? Gotta find. I think it was Cooper. He actually broke his
Yeah.
rib at the
Yeah, he
very
goes into that
beginning.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, at the very beginning of the filming, and he didn't want to tell anybody because he was afraid he'd get, tossed off the movie.
Because by
Uh,
that time they had already had I want to say maybe a week, and
yep,
and they had like 3 days of the training with the military guy. He was
yep,
really getting into it by that time. And so, but he says through the entire movie you could see
yeah,
him wincing and stuff. And so he thinks it added to his acting. Now, the cameraman made it seem like he was a big deal at the time.
hmm,
But I don't think he was on too much up until, I mean, he was doing like BBC and things like that, but I didn't
yeah,
see anything in his filmography that made me think of him as a big time guy. But the cameraman kept calling him a real actor, like
yeah,
he was. So I wonder if maybe he's um, trained. Maybe he went to like a big theatrical school or something.
yeah,
He apparently had the most background. He was the one that everybody was kind of in awe in,
yeah. He
at
was
least
in
in the back
Train
of the mind.
Spotting.
Yeah, Train Spotting. That's a big one. That's
Yeah,
probably the only one though.
yeah.
But I
I've
mean
never
that one.
seen it, so I don't know how big the character of Tommy was in that movie. Um, so I don't know if he was a major character. I've never seen it, so
Yeah, but that's still an independent movie. So to me, that doesn't make
yeah.
me feel like somebody that you would be in awe of when they're there.
Mm,
The cameraman is like really good friends or best friends with Neil Marshall, and that was their first film. So you got that feel of how everybody was really, really young and brand new to it and didn't know what they were doing. And then they paired him up with that producer from Hellraiser.
yeah,
And he had enough experience to kind of keep everything going. And these other guys were just doing what they wanted to do, how they did it, which I thought
yeah,
really leads to a very fun and original movie that isn't just completely overrun with Hollywood nonsense or
yeah,
any of those. I mean, I like how they did everything. I mean,
yeah.
they stayed true to Hollywood, the movies, the things they grew up on, but at the same time, they're not a part of the machine. They're outside, and
Hmm.
that's why I love. I mean, that's like Evil Dead and all those stuff. You get those independent horror movies, even The Howling. I mean, how we
Yeah,
talked about that. It's outside the box thinking.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I like they list out. She listed out different people who might have were the original thoughts for the characters. Like Jason Statham was the first thought for Cooper. Um, Simon Pegg there was the first thought for Spoon, but he was actually filming Shaun of the Dead at the same time. Um,
yeah.
and his partner, I guess they discussed it and thought that it would be too much, not conflicting, but to have both movies coming out about the same time, it might impact one or the other.
Well, not only
Um,
that, though, he probably doesn't want to be. I mean, now that we see what he's done with his career, but at the time, he's probably thinking, do I really want to come out with two horror movies right next to each other?
yeah,
And even though and we're probably talking, we already said it once, this is more of a military action film with horror elements.
yeah,
It's still going to be billed as a horror movie. And then he's going to be in a zombie movie and a werewolf movie right next to each other.
yeah,
Is he able to um, push out of that like he has with the other stuff? You don't want to get pigeonholed, especially in Hollywood. Even though both of those are British productions, because
right.
then people only see you in one light. So I could see him going one way or the other, and he always seems to lean comedic.
Hmm.
And Spoon's a funny character, but I
Right.
mean, Dawn of the Dead is hilarious. So
Yeah. Um, so sausages, if you love the movie Dog Soldiers, it's a great companion. it gave me a lot of insight, which again I'll discuss during us talking about the movie. It's not fiction. It's a walkthrough of the entire process from start to finish, of the making of this book, with a lot of, images, pictures, little tidbits and interviews and things like that. And it goes into, kind of how they make the prosthetics for the werewolves. So it's not your typical book. I had to put it down. I put it down for like a week or two, and then when I was probably about 200 pages in, at that point, and then when I picked it back up, I flew through the end, through the 200 remaining pages, or the 150 remaining pages. So it's just a good thing, to have to, up your trivia knowledge of dog soldiers, if that's something you're interested in. Because I know you had a hard time reading the book, just because of the way it came through, the way the author
Oh,
wrote
I
it.
just, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where um it's just how it is. I don't know. I don't know how to put it. I wasn't even going to bring it up. I may cut this part out right now. I don't want to
Yeah.
crap on anything. That's it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not a bad. It's got a lot of interesting stuff in it. I did,
Yeah.
but I struggle to read all the stuff we're supposed to be reading that's fiction, and
Yeah.
so, but it's got a lot of good information. I'm going to definitely go back and finish up some stuff. So
Yeah.
because it doesn't have, like I said, the interviews that I watched, there was only a couple people, and this has got almost everybody else in it. So.
Yeah. So that's our Not Stephen King book of the week. We'll have a link to it down in the description. So if you're wanting to check it out, you should definitely do that, because I enjoyed it. It was a good thing. I could, some of the parts actually made me kind of tear up a little bit. And one other thing I want to mention that I learned
Well,
in the book.
I'll do that. Before you say what that's one of the things about the book, and I guess I wasn't expecting it. I was thinking I was sitting down to read a um, a nonfiction viewing of sausage, of dog soldiers, from a dispassionate source, and she's anything but. She's a huge fan, and
Yeah.
her love of this movie comes through with the way that she's written this book.
Yep.
But when I'm reading about stuff, I'm not always about just the facts. I'm looking for just the facts, no opinion. And this is a lot of opinion with the facts, but it's not really, it's one of those things where she loves this movie, and it comes
Mm-hmm.
across on every page, and it's so fans will enjoy it, and I think you'll get something out of it. I just think when I sat down, I was expecting something dry. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I probably just wasn't in the right mind frame for it. But anyway, so
Yeah.
what were you gonna say?
One other thing I learned about this in the book was, when a character died in the movie, they actually sent that actor away.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's something in the documentary where, and they didn't say that, but what they said was is after every take, everybody would get around the little TV and watch. And he goes, and as the movie progressed, because it's filmed in line, the group of people watching would get smaller and
And
smaller.
smaller.
But
Yep.
they didn't say they sent them away. I just thought maybe they were in their trailer or
Yep.
waiting at the hotel. So that's
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
because
Yep. He did that to make the mourning of those characters more real, because
yeah,
these actors had gotten so close, um, that when one was missing, the whole group felt it. I thought that was really interesting that they actually sent them home. They're like, pack your stuff, check out of the hotel, and go home. So because they used to, after shooting, they would go to the bar or whatever together, and they couldn't do that. They would have like a person missing, just like it would happen if you were in a squad, and one of your soldiers got killed.
yeah, it's a good idea. Plus, it saves them money because they're not paying for that hotel room
Yeah,
anymore.
that too. That too.
So it does. It's a good idea for if you're a new filmmaker and you're looking to watch your budget. This is a smart way of doing it. You can only do this though if you film it in order. which a
Yeah.
lot of people don't do. So that right there is also kind of a cool technique that he did, doing it
Yep.
that way.
So now we'll move on to the actual movie of Dog Soldiers. I've
I
never seen this image before.
I think this is the original. This is what they got when you saw it, in the theater in 2002 or whenever it came out. And you can look you at the bottom from the producer of Hellraiser. I mean, they're
Yep.
really pushing that to make sure people got that this was coming. But yeah, I think this is a great cover.
Yeah. This never actually got a theatrical release in the US. It went right to Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
It did get a theatrical release overseas. So which is kind of a bummer. And it makes sense to me now because the first time I ever saw this movie, I don't even remember where I was living or how old I was. It was probably 2003 or 4 or whatever. And it was a lazy day. I was at home. I was off work and I was just flipping through the channels and I happened to come across this movie on Sci-Fi and it was happened to be at like the very beginning. Um, and I'm just like, oh, it's Sci-Fi. I like the Sci-Fi channel. I like the movies from the Sci-Fi channel. Um, so I just started watching it and it ended up being Dog Soldiers and I was like, holy shit, this is a good movie. This is a
Yeah.
really good movie.
Unfortunately, I don't like watching movies that have commercials
Yeah,
or are edited. So at the time when it came out, I don't know how bad sci-fi was with editing out, curse words and stuff, but I pretty much avoided anything on cable. So I probably didn't see this until years after the fact on Blu-ray.
yeah.
Um, I'm a
Yeah, but
bit
I
of
did.
a TV snob, I guess, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. But for someone who was just flipping channels, I was living by myself, at the time. I was just flipping through channels like, oh, what the hell am I gonna watch while I'm just hanging out at the house doing nothing? And this movie just popped on and I was like, yeah.
And those are the best movies. I love when you find a movie that you weren't
Hmm.
expecting, and you watch it, catch it that way. Of course, if I was still, I'd still be looking. I'd be flipping through Netflix or whatever. I'll be like tagging it. I'll be like, oh, that looks cool. But then I would keep scrolling and waste
Yeah,
hours looking
yeah,
for a movie. So sometimes TV is the best way. It just pops on. But
yeah,
um, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't see it till much later.
yeah. So this is another
That's the
um
cover that comes on the collector's edition.
yep,
And then on the inside, you get the other cover. You can flip them if you want to. Um,
yeah,
it's I think it's a cool cover.
yeah,
I like the other one though.
yeah. The other ones, this is good. This is more um creature focused,
Yeah,
whereas this one is more the people,
and of
you know.
course it's only people focused because we love the movie now so much. This,
Yeah,
they wouldn't have done that if this just kind of died off and disappeared. It would
right.
still be more of the wolf. So I mean, it just goes to show you how much power the uh, the audience has here getting
Yeah,
something like this put together.
yeah. I think this is one of the best werewolf movies ever.
Yeah, you know what? And I think it's one of the best werewolf movies because they don't treat it like a werewolf movie.
Hmm. Yep,
Like we said earlier, this is a this could be anything. They could be doing the barring the home and trying to protect themselves from the Koreans or the Chinese or vampires or werewolves or
yep,
aliens. It's all perfectly set up and it's very character driven. And I think because you bond with the characters, therefore you care about what happens, and then it becomes more interesting when the werewolves are introduced.
yep.
Um, I
Yeah,
think
so
these two guys are really good.
yeah. The funny thing that I learned in the book was when the scene after Wells has been attacked, and they're gonna glue his stomach together.
Yeah.
Um, and he's like, just punch me out, just punch me out. Cooper actually punched Wells. Like he legitimately actually punched him.
Well, before that though, he drank.
Yep.
Wells, the guy
And
that played Wells, he
Wells,
got permission to drink. He said he drank a whole bunch of brandy.
yep.
So he thought he got punched for being obnoxious. I've seen a quote where the guy that plays Cooper says, "No, he didn't mean to do it." But
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Wells was actually the actor who played Wells was actually drunk. Um,
Because at the
And
time he was high, not high, but they give him a bunch of morphine, the character morphine, and a
yeah,
bottle of whiskey.
yeah,
So he's supposed to be flying high. So he wanted to get in character, I guess.
yeah,
I love the actor. He's
yeah.
great. He's one of my favorites. He's in Event Horizon. He's one of my favorite Lestrades from Sherlock Holmes. He plays
Mm,
Lestrade in The Elementary, the one where Jamie Lee Miller is Sherlock and
yeah.
Watson is a woman. It's the girl from uh, Kill Bill. I can't think of her name
Uma
now.
Thurman.
No, the other one, the one that's she's Asian. She was in Charlie's Angels.
Oh, I don't.
Um, I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. I would know it any other time. Anyways, so I love him when he's in any. Oh, he's Penny. Was it Pennyworth on Gotham? He plays the butler
Yep.
on the throwback. He's just a great actor. I love him.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jason Isaacs. So,
No, Jason Isaacs actually was the character. He's the guy that's Snape's dad, or not Snape, but
oh yeah,
Malfoy's
yeah, yeah,
dad.
yeah, yeah.
He was offered the part, but he couldn't do it. So
Sean Pertwee. Sorry, I was
yeah,
reading the wrong name, the
he
wrong phrase.
suggested this guy because they were both together in Event Horizon.
Yeah.
But yeah, can you imagine? Well, like they said, now you can't imagine anybody playing these parts. But
Yep.
very easily, I mean, Isaacs is amazing. I love him as an actor too. I
Mm,
could see him pulling that part off without any issue. But can you imagine if it was him? And like you said, didn't you say Statham was supposed to be Cooper? So
yep.
that really would be weird.
Yeah. So that would not be. So Kevin McKidd was Cooper. He's the one, he actually broke a rib during
Yeah.
the training, the military training that they had. Um, which was fun. I just found it funny when I learned that he actually punched him, you know?
Yeah, I know. And they, from what I understand, he said there was blood all over the people you can't see just on off of the camera.
Yep.
Yeah, because his head swung that way. Um,
Uh-huh.
Good thing he had those drinks beforehand because you don't tell. Because he even sits up again and says, "Oh, you call that a punch or whatever,"
Yep.
and then he gets punched again, and then he goes unconscious. Um, so I think having those drinks really helped with that part of the performance. It does have that weird because why when it was going on, I'm thinking, man, he's really, you know, going for it. It almost
Hmm.
felt a tad hammy
Yeah.
because he's talking about loving him and all that other but and then you find out he was drunk and then you're like, okay, never mind, it makes total sense now,
Yeah.
and it
Yep.
really fits into what he was trying to do. So
Yeah. And then we have our other squaddies here, Joe and
I want to say all these guys are kind of unknowns, at
yeah,
least at the time.
yeah. So Spoon, um, Darren Morfitt, um, was the person who played the actor who played Spoon. Um, Bruce Campbell, homage to Evil Dead. Thomas Lockyer was the actor who played him. Joe Kirkley, Chris Robson. Chris Robson actually played in Band of Brothers, which was really good. I love that. Um, Leslie Simpson was Terry. Um, and yeah, so
I think Terry was also in something that Neil Marshall did before,
yes,
like
in
some short
combat,
film or something.
combat.
Because yeah, so I haven't seen it, but I he does mention it in the interview, how
Yeah,
he got offered kind of both things. So
yeah.
um, yeah, but they have a very nice dynamic. They come
Hmm.
across as friends in a good way, but they're also kind of have that rivalry that you usually get when you have six guys together,
Yeah,
especially when they're supposed to be, following orders and stuff. I thought they performed really well as a squad, and then it's really impressive when you find out that they only had like 3 days of training, and they really, I mean, I'm not sure how many hours a day that was, but they really do play the part.
yeah,
All really good. Um, I'm pretty sure isn't Joe the one that's always bitching about missing the game?
yeah,
Yeah, I thought Joe was a fun character, and Spoon was really funny. I really enjoyed Spoon. It'd be interesting to see Simon Pegg's take on Spoon, but I think
yeah.
this guy, I think he nails it. So, um,
Yeah, it's a bummer Bruce got off too early.
yeah, Yeah, and I thought that was kind of a funny end to have him to die that way, just a pure panic.
Yeah,
But you could kind of get that. You kind of get that feel. I mean, like they're not even facing real enemies when you introduce the werewolf. So,
right.
so again, um, we have werewolves that can change during the day because that was a
Hmm.
daylight shot. What and they broke every rule. I mean, they talked about silver, um, so I guess they kept that rule, but it also when they were as werewolves, they can't be killed apparently with gunshot, but they could be killed if they hadn't changed. Is that the vibe you got?
Um,
Because she gets shot in the head and she's dead, I guess.
yeah. Is she really dead though?
Well, and then they blow the house up. So then, yeah, so I
Yeah.
guess she
Well,
is. But
yeah.
she never,
Okay.
the farthest she changes, and she says this in an interview, the farthest she got in the change were the eyes and the teeth. And then
Yeah.
she gets shot in the head. So they never gave her, and it could simply be they didn't have another uniform, another costume.
Yeah.
But it made me wonder the way it got carried out. I was wondering if maybe, unlike the Howling, you know, they couldn't heal in human form. They could only heal in werewolf form.
Werewolf form. Yeah. Um, but they could heal in human form because both Ryan and Wells
That's true. They
healed.
healed to get to the point where they could change. And
Yeah.
she cuts her finger or her hand. And I was waiting for them to do a big hand reveal later, but they don't.
Yeah.
She sticks her hand out the window and it cats the glass and she
Hmm.
cuts it and then she wraps it. Later, it's still wrapped. I
And
was
then
waiting
she
for
gets
that to
that
change.
scratch on her face.
Yeah.
Um, and that doesn't seem to heal.
So I don't know, but maybe, yeah. And that's the one thing. And that's the other thing we have in every other werewolf movie, they get changed because they're bitten
Yeah.
or it's the curse or whatever. In this werewolf movie, if you're attacked but don't die, you
Yeah.
become a werewolf, which I
Yeah.
thought that's a bit of a stretch, but whatever. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
adds to it.
Yeah. So of course our favorite jerk, Ryan.
Okay,
Um,
so here's another question. At the beginning of this movie, you get 10 minutes or 5 minutes where we're introduced to Cooper, and he's going to be in the special forces, and that's run by this guy. And all he has to do, the final test, is to shoot the dog. Well, that's the exact same test in Kingsman. So what's up with British people having to shoot dogs to prove that they're, going to do what they're told to do or so? I just thought that was weird, a weird
yeah.
tie-in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that guy is a complete asshole, and
Yes.
he's
Yes, he
really
is.
and he's really good at doing it too. He's in a lot of cool stuff too. But
Yeah.
I thought he was a fun character, and yeah, he does a really good job of selling himself as being a victim at the beginning when he's attacked to
Hmm.
the point where he's healed and ready to become a werewolf. I thought he handles that arc really well.
Yeah. It's funny because like I said, I watched it today and I was watching it. Um, and I'm like, oh, the house blew up. It's the end. I forgot about Ryan. I was like, oh
Yeah, and
shit,
was
I
he
forgot
running
about
around with the
him.
sword in him
Yeah.
still? Like he
Yeah.
wouldn't have pulled that out. That seemed a little weird, but
Yeah.
um,
But
you
that
couldn't have
end,
had
that
that.
scene where he had it
Yeah,
going into Cooper's mouth, I was like,
I know.
oh
You
my
can't have
God.
the scene without the sword, but it
Yeah.
still doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The only other thing I didn't understand, and again, this is one of those movies, like a lot of times, where you just got to give it, you got to buy in and just allow it to be what it is. You don't have to. This isn't one of those that you need to tear apart. But when Megan picks him up, comes out of the blue, she picks him up, and then she's like, "Aren't you here to rescue? Isn't this a rescue mission?" Who are they supposed to be rescuing? Because at the end of the movie, she goes, I guess it's too late now. This isn't
Yeah.
going to happen. And so
Yeah.
was she thinking she was going to get rescued? But she's already a werewolf. So what is being rescued? I didn't
Yeah.
understand because there's no other live people. It's
Right.
just the soldiers and the werewolves. So
Yeah.
and so, and then I mean, she mean rescued from being a werewolf? Because they do that at the end.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I
or
don't know.
maybe, you know what? Or is it simply, does she want to be rescued from the family? And she just wants to go off and do her own thing. And maybe she's not eating people. Maybe she's a werewolf that doesn't eat people. But
Maybe.
that was one thing I couldn't tell. Are these werewolves that can't control themselves, like in, um, like American Werewolf in London or are they werewolves like you get in Underworld, where they're completely in control of what they're doing? Are they
Yeah.
hunting people for fun, or is it they turn into werewolves and if somebody's there, they're in trouble? So I
Yeah.
couldn't quite tell what Megan was trying to get across as, who needed to be rescued or who she thought they were there for.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's because she was maybe in cahoots with Ryan, because
yeah,
they like
possibly.
they had like you
But
know,
that doesn't make any sense. I mean, at the same time, you're right. They mention it. She
yeah,
says she worked with Ryan as
yeah,
whatever. Initially, she announces herself as a scientist that was studying something,
yeah.
but Ryan is under the belief that there's only one werewolf.
Hmm.
So if she's the one werewolf and she wants to leave, then why wouldn't she just say I'm the werewolf and then leave?
Yeah.
So there's got to be something there that we're not getting from the way that they produced the movie, or they gave us the thing.
Yeah, and
Um,
there wasn't anything about that really in the book. The only thing that was in the book, as far as Megan is concerned, is, and I never noticed it in the millions of times that I've seen this movie before, and I noticed a few things watching it today after having read the book. So I guess there's a lot of cues from Megan in the movie where you're kind of like, is she for the werewolves or is she a human that's helping the humans? Like, her cutting her hand was supposed to be some kind of cue where she like,
well, that's what I was thinking. It would be a cue to tell us that she's a werewolf if it healed, but then they didn't
yeah.
show it.
Um, the other thing to cue you in, supposedly that she was a werewolf, is she kept removing layers as the movie progressed. She was
Yeah,
in a
that would make
jacket, and then she removed like her outer shirt, and then finally she was just wearing a tank top because she's a werewolf and her body is heating up and runs hotter than a normal human.
right. And
Um,
you know what? Now that you say that, yeah,
yeah,
that's obvious. It does happen,
yeah,
and
and then
it
there was
doesn't
the
make sense. But at the same time, the soldiers are doing the same thing.
yeah,
They're overheating because of the action and the adrenaline, and a lot of them are taking off their coats and stuff.
yeah,
So it doesn't
and then
stand out that much.
no, and then there was a whole thing about the camera, um, about she was taking pictures,
Yeah,
and
she knew to distract them with the camera, and the whole
yeah,
time I thought the first time it was an accident, and then I
yeah,
thought, oh, okay, well, it's an accident. She figured something out. But now that we're talking about it, then yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, how did she know to grab a camera and take a picture? Because
yeah,
she's not really she doesn't face it towards the werewolf. She just holds it up. It's the
yeah,
flash that's kind of grabbing their attention, which
mhm,
makes sense because during the movie when they give you werewolf view, it's got a little bit of a. It's not totally night vision, but it's got a
yeah,
little bit of like a black and white
mhm,
dead thing. So a flash of light would just blur everything out. So
yeah,
that does make sense that would be an issue. But yeah, you're right. When you're looking at it, you're like, well, how the hell does she know that? But
yeah. So I kind of missed those cues in the movie, and I was trying to see them as I watched it today, what I read in the book, and I just didn't see it. I noticed, of course, that the clothing, the layers of her clothing coming off, it made kind of made sense, um, to me then. Um, but other than that, I kind of didn't hit those cue clues, that were in the movie, so,
yeah,
or
I
in the
mean,
book. But
but they do a good job. And you know
yeah,
what? Do you really? I mean, you want that. You want it to be a red herring, anyways.
yeah,
If you started to think she might be, you'd start thinking, well, it's probably a red herring. This is a movie that like I said, it's better just to sit back and enjoy it and not worry about all the little clues that they're trying, the breadcrumbs, if they're trying to do that. They do a really good job of just entertaining you. I mean, if
oh,
you wanted to, you
absolutely,
could tear the thing apart. And the director says it himself. There's things he'd go back and do differently because he didn't know what to do and they didn't have money.
yeah.
So, but you can tell, in his later films when he actually has a real budget and stuff. I mean, he's a great director. I really enjoy his movies.
Yeah,
I
this
thought
movie's
Megan was really fun too. I thought she was entertaining.
yeah, yeah. She was a great, great actress. I love the werewolves.
Yes,
I'm a big bipedal werewolf fan, um, or
I think that,
bipedal, bipedal, whatever.
this is one of the best makeup jobs or costumes for a werewolf,
Hmm.
because none of this is CGI. In
Yep.
fact, actually, I think the only thing CGI they may have done was her eyes, changing
Yeah.
her eyes. Um, but yeah, no, I think they're believable,
Hmm.
and the people they got to do the costumes to wear them got really comfortable doing it apparently because you can just tell the way they move and stuff. It's just really cool.
Yeah.
Everything about it, it's very graceful. From what I understand, they hired dancers. They
Yep.
didn't want muscle people. They wanted thin, slender, tall, dancers, um, and they do a really good job. They look like um, they kind of remind me of almost as if they were like a hybrid or an alien kind of
Hmm. Yeah.
creature.
Um, they also had mentioned in the book that in the set, the house that they built, because they actually had to build the house, um, they built the ceilings lower on purpose to make the werewolves look taller.
Yeah. Well, so they did
Because,
a beautiful job with aspects and
yeah,
ratios.
yeah, because you can see where like the top of the werewolf's head is like just brushing the ceiling.
Hmm.
So it kind of puts the perspective, it makes you think that this is a really giant beast. Um, so that was pretty cool. And then of course this is the
I
bedroom scene.
included this picture to give us the aspect ratio of how
Yeah.
big the guy is compared to the creature in the house and the window. And yeah, it's a fun take on the characters, and I really like their approach.
Hmm.
They didn't have the money to try and do a transformation. They didn't have the money for any the CGI technology wasn't there. I like that they did it the way they did. They went the old school throwback ways for changes. You get a couple scenes of the guy there and then out of frame and he stands back and he's a werewolf. The only thing I
Yep.
wish they would have done is when he falls behind the table and changes, sound effects. If they had done some sound effects of the bones popping, the
Pop in.
joints, yeah,
Yep.
then you would when he stands up, then you're like you've already filled it all in.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I thought was missing was a little bit of the sound effects with the changes, but I totally agree with their idea that they just didn't have it. Plus, I don't know if it's in the book, but in the documentary, Neil Marshall goes, or not Neil Marshall, a special effects, one of the special effects guys go, the problem with werewolf transformations is that it stops the movie, which is exactly what you and I talked about in The Howling. When
Hmm.
we watched that transformation and we're like, well, why didn't she just run away? Or why didn't she,
Yeah, that
light him on fire or something?
yeah.
Because you have that period of time where they show the transformation and it really screws with your visual
Yeah,
taken
the
of the
flow of
time.
the movie,
Yeah.
because that change in the howling, oh, that was brutally long.
And it was really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really cool, but it doesn't make any sense when you're watching it now. But I love that. And with CGI, you can make somebody transform into a werewolf in like 2 seconds and it doesn't
Right.
do that. But here, I really enjoyed it. I love the classic. I love when a director will embrace the technology, not the technology, but the techniques of yesteryear and recreate them in these movies. And you can kind of see that, with him.
Hmm.
You can see his love of cinema
Yep.
because, you can see these nods, subtle nods to different things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, my favorite scene in the whole movie was when Spoons was getting killed and he's like, I hope I give you the shits.
yeah.
That's my favorite line in the whole movie. Um, yeah, I love these werewolves. They're not too dog-like or wolf-like, but they are wolf-like. Um, like I said, I'm a big fan of two-legged werewolves instead of the four-legged
Yeah.
werewolves.
Yeah. We want them to be more humanoid. I mean, that's scarier,
Yeah.
you know. When you
Yep.
Twilight, they dropped to just big dogs. And I mean, I guess that's still scary, whatever, but
Yeah.
it's not the same thing. These right here are terrifying,
Oh yeah.
especially because you can tell that I mean, they can like grab stuff, they can pick things up, they can do things. I mean, it's just creepy when you add human characteristics to things like this.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I forget which character it was, towards the end when they were going to go to the barn and get the it was Terry. They were going to go and get the vehicle that was in the barn. No, it wasn't Terry.
That's the problem with military movies was when everybody has their hair cut this way,
Yeah.
you can't remember anybody. That's the
Yeah.
same problem I have with Black Hawk Down and all those movies. Like, well, they're all kind of. I know somebody famous is doing something, but
Yeah. I
they all
don't know
look the
what.
same.
But that character had to jump out of the second floor window, and it was actually a second floor. Um, and in, he just jumped. Like he just went all out and jumped, and he's like, "Yeah, that was probably pretty stupid because I could have broke my leg or whatever, you know."
Yeah,
Because then he was, he jump out the window, and it was the bait guy, the guy who
yeah.
was playing the bait.
But then you
So
get that you can then it goes back to what you were saying, how tight knit everybody was, and how they built this level of trust that they're just throwing themselves into the role and reacting as if they really were there and things of that nature. And it comes through. The movie is very believable.
yeah,
There's a couple parts where you're like, okay, and of course werewolves, but overall, I mean, it's a really well put together action film.
absolutely. And I could watch it. I have watched it so many times. Um, Not enough to memorize it, but I have watched it very frequently. Um, it's like I said, one of the best werewolf movies out there, and I completely ran into it by accident. Just flipping through the channels, and I found
Sure.
it on Sci-Fi one day. Um, so it's great. It's a great movie, great characters. Um, the Megan character, I was kind of like, when I first saw it, I'm ignoring that I read the book. When I first saw the movie, I was kind of like, oh, this chick, she kind of
Well,
doesn't.
okay, the very first time you watch it, you're like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah,
They're running from werewolves in the dark. They're sprinting. They've got a guy that's been mortally wounded. We're supposed to believe he's mortally wounded, yet they're basically jarring him the whole
yeah,
time. Then you got the one guy that's got his guts ripped out. That's the one. Sarge loses that attack with his guts hanging out, and they stuff him back in and they wrap him up. But
yeah,
then they're just basically running through the woods. It's like that's the only problem that you really have to click it off.
yeah,
But she just pulls up and says, "Get in the car," with
yeah,
absolutely no setup. And then you're like, there's no way some woman's randomly driving
right,
and sees a squad of military people hauling ass away from something and say,
yeah,
"Get in my car," without any
right.
questions. That's the thing that always stood out to me. And it even did it again this time. I've seen it more than once, and I still am thinking, she isn't even going to ask what's going on or anything. She just says, "Get in the car." But then, you kind of get the build up. They try and fill in the blanks, and it
Yeah,
kind of
she
makes
says she
sense.
heard gunshots,
And
and
then you find out
but
she's
still,
supposed to be a
yeah,
scientist, and you're like, all right, I guess. I'm watching the X-Files right now with the wife, and so I guess I'm more attuned to, okay, I guess I can see some
yeah,
crazy, you know, government scientist out here trying to figure something out. But
yeah. But you
um,
gotta think too, like even if at the beginning of the movie you don't know that she's a werewolf yet, you're like, okay, she randomly finds these people and says, "Get in my car," and they're armed, and they've got this guy who's wounded, and then she said, "Oh, I heard gunshots, so I knew something was going on." So
last
if you're,
night too,
yeah,
last night, it wasn't
last
even
night.
recently.
Yeah, so if you're meant to believe at that point in time that she's a human still, what human woman would hear gunshots and be like, "Hey, let me get in my car and go see if I can find anybody," you know?
Yeah, see what I can do to help. Well, and I guess you tried to tie it into the people disappearing and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't make much sense. But I mean, it could be just like when I go to Kentucky, you hear gunshots all the time. People just in their yard, they can shoot, you can fire wherever you are and stuff, as long as you're not in town. So maybe she just thought of it like that. Maybe she just heard. Of course, we're not talking normal gunfire either. It's not like
Yeah.
I heard
Machine guns.
yeah, she heard
Machine
machine
guns,
guns.
yeah.
So that makes it even more unlikely that she's going to be driving around. Those aren't, that's not the kind of gunfire you go towards.
Right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
you're
like,
totally
hmm.
right there. But
Um,
yeah,
but
I don't know. But it's exactly what you needed. You needed a little drop of something that wasn't these soldiers, you
right.
know? and then she could fill in the pieces a little bit, who owns the house.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah. They,
funny how they don't catch on immediately, but they slowly, all of a sudden they're like, well, if nobody lives out here, then and there's werewolves, then logically the people that live in this house have to be the werewolves.
right.
But and that was nice that they at least finally came to that. But um,
Yeah. But
yeah,
I
but the
mean,
isolation of that place, that alone to me is terrifying,
oh,
and
right.
then
Right.
drop those other things in there. And then the
Yeah.
whole time they were doing, because they're on an assignment. They're supposed to go and do this over the weekend. And I just kept thinking, well, what about all the people that own this land? Like, are they told beforehand that there's going to be soldiers walking through your property? Or, but then you find out that nobody lives out there but that one family. But, like, I was just curious how that works. I mean, is this land that's supposedly owned by the government for the most part?
Yeah.
Or,
Or public land,
because I
which
couldn't
makes more sense.
imagine that they
Yeah.
would just drop soldiers in land that might have civilians,
Yeah.
but maybe that's part of what they needed to do.
Yeah. Or maybe
To
they do. I
train.
mean,
I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I was really bummed when, Wells didn't make it. I wanted Wells to make it.
But I like his justification, and he tells you that he shouldn't make it
Yeah.
because he's turning into a werewolf,
Hmm.
and that it's not, he's already dead basically, and he doesn't think that he should be allowed to keep living while the boys are gone. So I do
Yeah.
like that he made the, he does the thing the leader's supposed to do. He's leading by example or whatever. He's making the final sacrifice to get at least one soldier out of there.
Right.
um he said in the making of that, because they didn't make eyes for him, he borrowed the eyes from the other guy, the dick.
Hmm.
I can't remember his name. um
Ryan.
Ryan. And he said they're soft lenses and they're not made for his eyes, so every time he would blink they would fold. So he said for a long time he had to do this, just to have his eyes open really wide.
Oh my
And
gosh.
while they're doing the filming of that little section, he says it was agony, but he wanted to have the eyes so that they would transform it or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, he's a great actor. I love him.
Mhm. Yeah, and I loved reading about in the book the different stunt heads that they had to build for the werewolves because they weren't going to ruin like the main one, you know.
Yeah, because you can definitely see there's battle damage, and
Yeah.
then there's normal werewolf, and they're just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. Let me go back to this because it's kind of a better view. But yeah, that is a terrifying freaking werewolf.
Yeah, it has like all the aspects of everything that would make you scared of it if it was a dog or a wolf or a, mutated human. It's just
Yeah.
everything that they've done is just really highlighted all the cool things. And I think that's one of the selling points. I think that's how they were able to get everything for this movie done. Because every time people would see the script, and the script itself is really good, but then they would see this maquette that he had an artist do for him, and some sketches that a friend of his did for him, and it's these sleek, really cool. I think anybody sees that and they're like, yeah, I want to make that movie.
Hmm.
It's not, because if you say werewolves, then I bet you immediately they thought Howling, American
Yeah.
Werewolf. They have that stuck in their head. This shows you that it's already a little bit different.
Yeah. Um, Another cool, cool things about the movie that I read in the book was the set. They actually had to build the house in the middle of nowhere. Um, and they only built the front and the side, of course, because they're not going to build a full house, especially
Yeah,
with
because
the
every
low.
shot is just the outside front, where they keep parked or whatever,
Yeah.
and the side when where he jumps out of it.
Hmm. And then, of course, the explosion where they blow it up is actually a miniature. They had actually art students build um, a miniature rendition of the house.
That's cool.
Yeah, and they would blow it up um, to blow it up because they weren't going to blow up the real house that they had
Yeah, I'm
built.
sure that would be a problem, especially because it's right there by the woods and stuff. Probably not a good
Yeah,
idea to have a bunch of uncontrolled flames going on.
yeah,
Because they blew up the little shed too.
yeah, yep. They blew up the little shed
I wonder if
with
that
the.
was a miniature too.
I don't remember
Because
if
if
it
it's
was.
not, if it is a miniature, it's amazing. If it's not
Yeah.
a miniature, it's still pretty cool. But I'm just like, because it looks, I mean, the house looked really cool when it blew up. But I mean, that the shed is, I don't know. It's just the way it blew up. I mean, if they made that out of a miniature and blew it up the way they did, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. But I thought that was neat too that they, had art students
Yeah.
building
Well, hey,
the miniature.
there's our message for independent creators. Sometimes you're going to have to find creative ways to get your stuff done, your covers, editing, things of that nature. You're going to have to find, maybe you find art students, to give your
Yep.
covers and all that kind of stuff. When you're making this stuff at the very beginning, when every dollar counts, these that's the cool thing about indie directors, to go with indie writing and all that stuff, is that to get your vision and your dream out there, sometimes you gotta think outside the box. So
Yep. Absolutely. So 5 stars for the movie. I
yeah,
definitely.
they're absolutely. This is easily a top. I mean, I haven't sat down and like ranked all my werewolf movies. It's probably a top three movie for me. I usually put Curse of the Werewolf from Hammer as my favorite movie. I just really like that one, but I could understand why people don't. And then the original Wolfman is high up there for me. But when you come to an action, I mean, the only other werewolf movie I can think of that's even close to this action wise would be Underworld, and that's more of a vampire series than a werewolf thing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I really enjoy it. I mean, it does everything really well. It does really well with the action side of it. It does really well with the monster side of it, and the characters are believable. And if they're not all likable, they're at least well rounded enough that you can
Feel
um,
something towards them.
yeah, it's you
Yeah.
you can connect with every single character that they present you. Even at the
Yep.
very beginning, we only get to see that the hikers for 5 minutes, three
Mm-hmm.
minutes, but you can there's something there. There's a little bit there that they give you that makes you think, oh, I can see this
Mm-hmm.
as people. I could see myself with my wife or girlfriend or whatever at the time doing something like this, being in this environment.
Yep.
Um, I just thought that, yeah, he handled it really well. And this being his first movie, like full length movie, um, boy, he set the bar high for himself. Now, of course, he delivered. I mean,
Yeah.
he
Oh
does
yeah.
Descent next, which is an amazing movie, and Centurion. I love that movie a lot. I don't mind his Hellboy. He had a lot going against him, but when I finally watched Hellboy, I thought, oh well, this isn't as bad as everybody made me believe it was going to be. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Def
really do enjoy him as a director. Even Doomsday. Doomsday is a great movie.
mm-hmm.
I love that's the thing I love about him is that he's basically making movies about all the things that I loved growing up. Like I mean, Doomsday reminds me of Road Warrior, and Descent is all the creepy, great creature features that you grew up watching. The werewolf movies, the fact that he tackled it. He even says in the documentary, he's like, "Oh, there's just not a lot of werewolf movies, so I wanted to do that." He goes, and then I made a werewolf movie and realized, oh, this is really hard.
Yeah.
That's why they don't do this that's why people don't do it because of all the moving parts. But now I guess it's not as hard. I bet you it's easy with CGI. If you have
Yeah.
the money, you can
Right.
do it pretty
Right.
easily.
Yeah. I
But
really wish that a sequel would come about because there was plans for a sequel, but it's
yeah.
been, years and years and years now. So
So was the sequel planned with Cooper or was it just another series of
it was going to
werewolves?
be with Cooper. Yeah. But it's probably never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
he's got that gray anatomy money now, so he probably doesn't want to go sit out in the woods.
yeah. And
So
relive that because
yeah.
he would have to make a sequel just like Dog Soldiers, with low budget. It would have to be
It would
to
feel
make it,
that way.
yeah, to make it be a believable sequel to a beloved movie. It would have to be the same. I don't even know what
You
words
know,
I'm trying.
we say that, but then I can show you Evil Dead, and then I can show you Army of Darkness, and they're nothing alike. And
Yeah,
that's a beloved sequel. And so but I think we've gone enough time that instead of a sequel, the best you could do is a reboot or a reimagining, and
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
Yeah, no.
So maybe they just leave it alone. Now he does have a good point. The director said he filmed, I think, on 16 millimeter, and that film gives it the graininess.
Hmm.
So they're not going to do that ever again. I don't think. I think everybody films on that digital stuff now. So I
Yeah.
don't even know if they could capture it. I guess you could in post production put it in there, but I don't know. I mean, I guess Tarantino still does crazy stuff like that, film stuff on weird, but it's so expensive. I just don't know. And I don't know
Yeah.
if as big as Neil is as a director, I don't think he's that big. I don't think he's big enough where he can throw his weight around and say, I'm doing X and do it
Right.
unless he's paying for it himself. So, but I'm with
Yeah.
you. I wouldn't want to see a reboot. I wouldn't mind a sequel, but sometimes I think these movies are better when they're just left alone.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure. I think, like you said, I think at this point, there's just, if when was this released? 2002?
I think it's
2000?
2001 or two.
Yeah.
Gotta
So
be
we're
that.
like, 20 years
Yeah.
down the
Actually,
road.
would you want to watch it as a, like, say, a Netflix series or maybe 8 episodes? And maybe you get more information about how the werewolves come to be or something, and then you have less of the soldiers and more of that. Maybe that's interesting. But then again, I would almost rather they just did their own werewolf thing and
Yeah.
just stole the idea of the shape and stuff, you know?
Yeah, because if it doesn't have Cooper in it, at the very least, it's not anything to do with dog soldiers,
Yeah.
you know. And you figure it's been 20 years. Yeah, they could
Uh,
have another actor, but it just still wouldn't feel the same because I really hate that in movies when you have like an actor play in a part in one movie and then either in a sequel or whatever, they have a different person play it.
yeah.
I mean, it's not that big of a deal if the person is fully made up like a pinhead, you know, i- is wearing makeup. You really can't tell who the person is underneath the makeup. But when it's an actual
Although I
human
think
being,
we proved
yeah,
when we watched the new Hellraiser that it would have been
yeah,
better
yeah,
if he
yeah,
would have been in that movie because
yeah,
he made the movie, his voice and his look and everything. But
yeah. But
no,
you
I
know what
get
I'm
what you're saying.
saying.
But you know
Yeah,
what? You know what you could do, and if you and I were going to sit here and brainstorm how we're going to start this movie, you have Cooper today, 20 years later. Well, he's risen up the ranks and now he's, whatever he is, and he can start the movie sending soldiers to do his bidding to go find the werewolves. So then you get to keep Cooper for a second and then introduce
yeah,
the other characters, and then everybody's happy. I guess that's how you would do it. But
yeah,
I just don't know if although he's still young enough, he could be, I guess, something in the movie. Of course,
yeah.
wouldn't it be interesting to see that he got injured somehow that we didn't know about? And now he's a werewolf 20 years later dealing with that.
Oh yeah, when
That
he was
might be
fighting with
interesting.
Ryan, maybe he got scratched or.
Yeah, because we never established exactly what needed to be done.
Hmm.
The blood from the werewolf is obviously on the sword. So then the sword is in his mouth.
Mouth.
So now you got the DNA of the werewolf in your mouth.
You
Obviously, you
swallow
now
it.
have,
Yeah,
yeah, you have werewolf AIDS and you become a werewolf and you
yeah,
run off into the thing. So we've just now written Dog Soldiers 2. So we need to send this off to somebody and see if we can
yep.
get some money for this. But yeah, that's easily how we could do it. And I think that would be interesting. I guess Cooper is a werewolf, or maybe sending off soldiers. If a new, say in Scotland, they were having another werewolf infant station or whatever, he would know what it was now
Yep.
because he was there. Before, I don't think anybody actually understood what was going on, except for Ryan. He
Right.
was trying to capture one. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
What did you think he was there for? Because was he there to kill him? Was he there to capture one? Was he there to try and get somebody to turn him into a werewolf? It wasn't very clear.
Yeah, I thought what I read from it by watching the movie is I thought he was there to capture one, because he was working for, I forget the acronym, like some super secret weapons
Yeah,
military people, um, and they wanted one so that they could weaponize werewolves,
right.
basically.
Which is, sounds like a great idea
Hmm.
until until you lose control of the werewolf. But
Yeah, just that little thing, the werewolf goes out of control.
you got to try, right? Everybody,
Yeah,
all the armies have to try something crazy once. So
yeah. So if you haven't ever watched Dog Soldiers, definitely do it. You can buy it on Amazon, on Blu-ray, DVD. I don't know if you can stream it anywhere.
Yeah, you
Probably
can stream it. You can stream it with ads on Tubi and I want to say Roku. And then you can also buy it to stream it or rent it from, Amazon, Apple, all those
Amazon.
places.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
if you don't mind ads, Tubi's probably the best place to go. Because they don't seem to interrupt the movie as much as some of the other ones. I think you usually get like one set every 30 to 45 minutes or something like that.
Oh, that's not bad.
Now I say that, and it's probably going to be every 5 minutes when you go to watch
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Oh, wow. Yeah. Dog Soldiers, watch it. It's
oh, and also understand this is a movie low budget, filmed differently than a lot of things. There's no way to clean it up. I mean, I've
mm-hmm,
got the collector's edition Blu-ray, and it's grainy
mm-hmm.
and dark, and they've done what they could. So just understand that when you go to watch this movie, you're watching an older film. And it's not like the black and whites that when they clean those up, those are really awesome. They pop. This movie's a dark, dirty, grungy film that's going to continue to be that even on the highest of definition that you got. In fact, it probably gets
Yeah.
worse the higher you go. So,
And I
but
think
just
that adds to the movie.
I do too. It makes, and I guess it must have been raining most of the time because everything's really kind of
Yep.
mucky and gross. And I think it lends to the atmosphere.
Yeah, they mentioned several times in the book about how it was raining the whole time and everything was all muddy and they were just every day they would go back to the hotels just covered in mud.
Yeah, I can imagine because it looks like it's a slop fest.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah.
you want to read the book, you want to get the movie. This is something that should be in your collection. Dog
Yeah,
Soldier should be there.
absolutely. So thank you for joining us on this look at Dog Soldiers and Sausages, the making of. Um, we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.